Hello, and welcome to our student visa overview session. I am a consular officer with the U.S. Department of State, and I work in the Bureau of Consular Affairs, which is within the Department of State, the bureau that provides consular services that protect U.S. citizens and their interests abroad, ensures U.S. national security, and facilitates the entry of legitimate travel to the United States, to include students. When it comes to adjudicating visa applications of all kinds, national security is our top priority. So every prospective traveler to the US undergoes extensive security screening. Our job is to ensure that applicants who seek to travel to US, whatever their purpose of travel, are qualified to receive visas and do not pose a threat to our national security. And for those applicants who are qualified to receive visas, we want to facilitate their travel. We recognize that the facilitation of student and exchange visitor visas to qualified applicants has numerous benefits to our country and to others. To include a positive image of the U.S. foreign policy and the U.S. abroad. We know that students who study in the U.S. often attain positions of leadership within their own country and carry their experiences they had in the U.S. back with them. And it's positive for the U.S. economy. So we are so happy that so many students around the world want to come and study in the United States, and we look forward to helping facilitate that. So here's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to do an overview of the visa application process, what you can expect from the beginning to the end, give you a little bit of information about statistics of what sort of students we get, and then resources for you to contact us and to begin your student visa process. So first of all, what is a visa? Basically, it is permission to apply for entry into the United States. This is what a visa looks like. An issued visa is basically a sticker that is placed in the holder's passport. Includes a photo of the person, their name, date of birth, and place of birth, and the visa type, which for a student is usually an F1 visa. A visa gives a student the ability to come to the United States and apply for entry from the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection official at the port of entry, which in most cases, coming from Rwanda, would be an airport. The visa does not guarantee that the student will be granted entry into the United States. That decision is made by a Customs and Border Patrol official. So basically, a visa is permission to present yourself to Customs and Border Patrol to request entry into the United States. A few things to note about what you see on a visa. There is the visa issue date and the expiration date. The expiration date is in fact when the visa expires, which means the date in which you can no longer present yourself for entry into the US. It does not indicate the length of stay, which is determined by other things depending on the visa class. What are student visa classifications? So, J visas are for specific programs for a discrete amount of time. Often these are for graduate studies or for a very specific program of study. More often than not, students going to the United States apply for F visas. Your school will tell you which type of category you should apply for. So you'll know if you're an F or a J. In the case that somebody comes to the US in one status, for example, as a student, and then wants to change to another, for example, a worker, that person would be applying for a change of status from the US Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. They would still need to obtain a visa from post when they leave the country next. So what is the visa process? Visa law is applied exactly the same around the world. We're all following the same laws. However, the processes can be very post specific. So if wherever you're applying, make sure you check that post website to get the most accurate information for that specific post. So the first thing to know is timing. We recommend that students apply as early as possible to avoid being late for their program. Um, Appointment wait times differ by country, by time of year, by what is going on within a post, and so there's no guarantee of timing. So we recommend to start that process as soon as you can. A student visa can be issued up to 120 days before the program start date. So you can apply as early as you want and just make sure your appointment window is within that 120 days of your appointment start date as listed on your Form I-20. However, as soon as you get a Form DS 2019, a J1 visitor visa can be issued. So keep that in mind. Um, Also with timing, um, you cannot apply for entry until 30 days prior to your report date. So even if you get your visa issued 120 days before your start date, the actual visa date won't be any earlier than 30 days before your start of the program. So you can't travel to the US months in advance of the start of your program. And both F visas have 60 days after the completion of their program to depart the country. That's important to keep in mind too. Here in Kigali, we do our best to prioritize student visas and get them in as quickly as possible because we know they have some time sensitivities to them. Um, so there are often student visa appointments available, but we do recommend getting those as quickly as you can. And in case you find yourself up against of a hard deadline and you're not seeing an appointment available, you can send us an email. You'll see the email at the end of this slide deck, where you can email us and for more information. Or after you've booked an appointment through our online booking system, you can request an expedited appointment. And we do our best to review each of those and approve them whenever possible. So step one, once you've enrolled in a school and have your I-20, is to complete the DS-160 visa application, pay the application fee, and schedule your interview appointment. That's all on one website, which you can find through our website here. You'll get the link to that at the end of this. The next most important thing to do after you have an appointment date is to pay your SEVIS fee at fmjfee.com. If you show up to your appointment and your SEVIS fee has not been paid yet, you will not be interviewed and you'll be turned around and you'll have to schedule a new appointment. So please make sure that SEVIS fee is paid before you come to your appointment. And also with the SEVIS fee, important to note is to pay that yourself. There have been cases of fraud when someone has offered to make a payment on someone's behalf and the SEVIS fee was not in fact paid. So make sure that you going to that website and making that payment. Same with your visa application. People often go through third parties to help them fill out that application. We recommend not doing that because in too many cases, errors are made. Or the person is not able to follow up on their own information. So far as you can, please make your own account, fill it out yourself, and make your payments yourself. Finally, make sure that your passport is going to be valid for at least 6 months after your planned arrival in the United States. If it's not, you'll need to apply for a new one. And as a student who's probably going to be living in the United States for an extended period of time, you're going to want to have a lot of time left on your passport. And if you have any other SEVIS related questions, we recommend you go to ice.gov. That's ice.gov. ICE is the administrator for the SEVIS program, not Department of State. So they're going to be the ones who can answer any specific questions regarding that program. Okay, what do you need to bring with you to your appointment? The only required documents are the ones that you see here: your passport, a photo of you that meets the requirements that are listed on our website, your DS-160 confirmation page, your I-20 if you're an F visa, or your DS-2019 if you're a J visa, and then receipts for your application and SEVIS fee. You are welcome to bring other documentation with you, but nothing else is required. What we do strongly recommend bringing is any documentation regarding scholarships or grants or your method of payment. But that being said, one thing to note is that our visa adjudication process is based on the interview, not documents. which means that during the course of your interview, we may not look at any of your documents at all. There are two reasons for this. One is that the main thing we want to know through an interview is to be convinced that an applicant will use their visa for the intended purpose. This can't be determined just by looking at your application or your documents or bank statements, but it can be through talking with the applicant and getting a better sense of their purpose of travel. The second reason is that we see a lot of fraudulent documents here at the embassy and embassies around the world. Things such as bank statements and scholarship letters, all too often are fraudulent, and so we just don't look at many of them at all because they cannot always be trusted. So if you do come to the window and the officer never asks to see your bank statement, don't take it personally. Just know that that's our process. So what is going to happen in the interview? And what is the consular officer looking for? There's four main things that the officer is going to be looking for in your interview. The first is who you are. What are your ties to Rwanda? What is your story? We understand that you're young and you maybe don't have many ties like a house or a job or a family here, and that's okay. But we do want to know as much as we can about you and how you ended up applying to university in the United States and what your goals are. Which brings to the second thing is what do you want to do? What do you want to plan to study? Why? Why do you want to study where you want to study? The third thing we want to know is how you're going to pay for it. We definitely want to see that you have enough liquid assets or aid to cover at least the first year of the program and a solid plan to pay for the remaining years of the program. And finally, we want to know what you intend to do when you've completed your studies. It is incumbent on the applicant, that's you, to explain these things to the window. Any question you're asked, do your utmost to give as much information as you can. Please know that that some questions may seem personal or rude, um, but it's all part of the process. The officer at the window is just trying to get a better picture of what your plans are, how you intend to pay for your program, and if you intend to come back. The most important thing to note is that you should not lie. In student visas, the most often lies we hear are things like whether or not they have family in the United States, their reasons for choosing a particular school or a city, or their parents' income. Um, even a small lie, even one that seems maybe insignificant, can make the officer question any other answer you do give and is likely to cast a shadow on your whole interview. So don't try and guess what the officer wants to hear. Instead, just answer truthfully. We know that a lot of information on the internet, there is a lot of information about visa interviews, about what you should or shouldn't say. But we ask that you keep in mind that very little of this is often accurate. As much as you can, use US government sources to get your information. But just note that there isn't a correct answer to any question we're asking. The only correct answer is the truth. So what might happen in your interview? The most You may get approved, congratulations, but you might also get a visa refusal. Um, Around the world, 74% of all F1 visa applications are approved. Um, but that leaves a large number who unfortunately do get refused at their interview. The most common refusal that you'll see is called 214B. This is Section 214B of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which explicitly presumes every non-immigrant visa applicant to be an intending immigrant, and it places the burden of disproving this presumption on the applicant. In adjudicating non-immigrant visa applications, consular officers examine each application individually to determine whether or not the applicant qualifies and overcomes this presumption. So a student visa applicant must demonstrate that they have no intention of abandoning their residence abroad, that they intend to depart the United States upon completion of their study, and that they possess sufficient funds to pursue the proposed course of study. So if someone receives a denial under 214B, it's likely because they did not sufficiently convince the consular officer that they met one of those requirements. If a student receives a 214B denial, he or she can reapply. There's no limit on the number of times that someone can reapply. Sometimes someone is able to receive an approval at a subsequent application, but this is usually because something in his or her situation has changed or because they were better able to express themselves to the officer. We do recommend that if you want to reapply, make sure something in your situation has changed. Otherwise, you may receive the same outcome. The second most common refusal is 221G. We'll cover that a little bit more on the next slide. And 212A is the final refusal, and that encompasses an ineligibility on the part of the applicant, such as a DUI, drug possession. And in the case of something like this, it's very important that a student is completely honest and tells the truth up front. We may be able to work around something and make it work, but only if the applicant is upfront and honest. If you do receive a denial, you will receive a document that cites the section of the law for which you're refused. But that is all the information that the officer is able to give at that time. Okay, so after 214B, the next most common refusal is called 221G. If you receive this refusal for administrative processing, it means that your case requires some further review or more information on your part. This is going to be unique to each applicant, what is required. It may involve resolving questions about the applicant's eligibility, or it may be a specific question the consular officer would like to have answered. So the specific reasons will vary case to case, but all applicants will be informed of what will happen next, whether they need to provide additional information or documents, or if they just need to wait until they hear from the consular section. And the timing for completion of admin processing varies based on the individual and their circumstances, but we do our best to ensure that admin processing for students and exchange visitors is completed to allow timely travel. But do keep administrative processing in mind when you set up your appointment date. And also noting that refusals are common and possible, please do not ever book your plane tickets before your visa interview. No matter how sure you are you will get a visa, you cannot be sure about when you'll get that visa. And we cannot necessarily print visas same day or with a very short turnaround. So we advise all applicants to please wait until after their interview until they have their visa in hand to book their plane tickets. Applicants may follow up with the consular section on the status of their applications that have been refused 221G, but we ask that they wait at least 60 days from the date of interview before or from the submission of their supplemental documents, whichever's later, before following up with us via email. Okay, so we know there are a lot of visa myths floating around in the world, and so we want to address some of these. The first, as I mentioned before, is that there is a right or wrong answer in the interview. That's completely false. Every person is unique. Every story is unique. What we want to know is your particular story, and we want you to be honest. Secondly, there's a myth that you need to attend a certain size of university or a certain type of university. That's false. In fact, you can get a visa to attend any size university, public and private colleges and universities, community colleges, all the way to big state universities are all equally good options for students and can be approved to admit international students. That being said, have a good reason for why you chose your university. We want to know what it was about that particular program that called you. Um, and so make sure you do your research on that. Another myth is that you're more likely to get a visa if you pay someone to help you. That is absolutely false. No one outside of the consular department has any sway over adjudications, and nor do they have any inside information into the process. So if someone is taking your money and saying that they will make it more likely you get a student visa, they're probably defrauding you. Uh, we we recommend every student do the process on their own. We've heard that the U.S. doesn't welcome students anymore. That is absolutely not true. International students are very welcome in the United States, and they are very valued members of our academic communities. Um, so we're hoping to bring more and more Rwandans into the fold. If you have heard other visa myths, if someone has told you something that will make it more or less likely for you to get a visa, you are welcome to reach out to us and confirm whether or not that's true. But also, there's a lot of public resources that can tell you more about visas that are approved resources. Here's a list of some here from the Department of State and Department of Homeland Security. We recommend looking at these and doing your research starting here before you begin your visa application process. And finally, if you have specific questions about how things work here in Kigali, you can reach out to us at nivkigali@state.gov. You can go to our website and find the link to the application for your DS-160 and to make an appointment. And we hope to see many of you at the window, and we hope many of you end up being students in the United States. Best of luck on your visa process.